So, in this episode, we get to talk about how to build wealth as a woman. And we touch upon the 5 mistakes that most female entrepreneurs are making and how to avoid them. I know I was making all of them, not aware of any of them. And so I'm really excited to bring you this conversation today. And I talk with Kaitlyn Carlson, who is the founder of Theory Planning Partners. And it's a really unique boutique wealth creation firm designed exclusively for top female entrepreneurs. So, Kaitlyn used to work in the wealth management and planning industry and found that she was working with all men and millionaires and billionaires that had a wonderful level of access, expertise, and support to build their wealth. And she noticed that a lot of women were missing the information. And so her mission was to create a company that could help build wealth for women in a way that was very holistic and different. So, in this episode, you're going to hear amazing tips and different perspectives of how to do that. For example, one being, I always looked at the term retirement as an entrepreneur as something I wasn't interested in. I love creating. I don't want to stop working altogether. And instead, she reframes that as a work optional age. Like, when would you like to hit an age where, yes, you're going to still desire to create and to work, but it's optional? You have more choice. One of my favorite things she said is wealth is the luxury of choice. And so enjoy the episode. Please DM me, DM Kaitlyn or Theory Planning Partners. You can find the links below in the show notes and let us know what you think of this episode. Enjoy. I am so excited to hear from you. Welcome to the Shift Your Vibe to Thrive podcast. My name is Emily Evans Russell, and I'm a single mom, multiple six-figure business owner, and master mindset and energy coach. I created this podcast with 2 main targets. One, to give you practical tools so that no matter where you are in your life right now, you not only know that things can shift, but you know how to make them greater. And 2, to change your frequency so that you become an energetic match for everything you desire. I'm talking your relationships, your finances, your success, all of it. Think of this podcast as your weekly energetic upgrade with a mix of subconscious mind hacks, ways to quantum leap, and consciousness shifts. A place where you learn to sculpt your reality and actually finally truly have the magical life you deserve and one that works for uniquely you. Are you ready to uplevel your reality? I think I hear yes, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. Thank you so much for being here. And now let's go to the show. All right, so Kaitlyn, I would love to start with you talking about why you founded Theory Planning Partners, because it's so unique. When I heard about the business and that you were really designing wealth creation for female entrepreneurs, I was like, that's so different. So can you talk a little bit before we get into like money mistakes that people might be making, but talk a little bit about why you created your vision and this company and why it's so different.
Thank you. I'm excited to talk about this. So, I'll take you a little bit further back than when I got into wealth management. So, I was a psychology major in college, but I knew that I wanted to have a career in finance. My dad and my grandfather were both in finance. And so, when I graduated college, I first went into the asset management side of the industry. And when I was in that role within the asset management firm, that's when I found out about wealth management. And I loved the idea that as a financial advisor, I would be able to combine these 2 interests of psychology and finance. And so after I finished that management program, I was about 2 years into my career, I switched over into wealth management. And I was very deliberate about where I went. I moved over to UBS Financial Services, and I loved that firm because they kept the number of advisors that they had. I knew I was going to get a quality education. They were going to pay for my certifications, like my CFP, for example. And when I entered into the industry, I did it as a planner, which was really unique because I was working mostly with brokers. So a lot of the older advisors were just used to selling stocks, and it was more of a transactional approach. And so when I got into the industry, it was really teaching advisors how to take a holistic approach. So, how to look at someone's entire life and build financial strategy around that, which is kind of crazy because I thought that was always the way that it was, but
Yeah.
it's really not until the last like 15 years, I would say, that the industry has started shifting in that direction. And so I was a planner for the first 2 years, and that was such a unique vantage point because I worked with over 80 different advisory teams. And so I got to see like how some did it well, how others didn't quite do it that well. And there were definitely some key themes that I noticed when I took a step back. The first of which was when I was in that program, I worked with over 300 clients, and not one was a self made woman,
Wow.
which I found absolutely astonishing. And that was really hard for me because here I was, a woman in her 20s, and I didn't have one role model to look up to in terms of building wealth. And
Wow.
then the second theme that I noticed was this was before my private wealth management days. So I was working with a lot of everyday Americans who were coming up on retirement, and that's why they were starting to work with advisors. But as the planner, I was often kind of like blindsiding them with information like you're going to have to work another 20 years, or you're going to have to live off of 100,000 when you're used to living off of 400,000, or your business might be worth half of what you thought it was. And so it was a lot of this like woulda, coulda, shoulda conversation versus, wow, I wish we could go back to like 30 years ago and build this intentionally.
Yeah. Can you pop in there? The difference is why were they at that point? Like, what as a planner were you doing different that they weren't getting before, that they were so surprised to be in that position?
It's a great question. So, what I realized was it went back to the compensation model, and that's super important. And that's like our biggest differentiator at Theory. So, in a typical financial advisory arrangement, it's usually what's called a percentage of assets under management. So, Emily, let's say you gave me $1 million. In a typical arrangement, I would charge you, let's say, 1% of that $1 million. So, I would make $10,000 a year off of your $1 million. When your $1 million grows with the markets, my compensation grows.
Okay.
And that fee is taken directly out of the portfolio. So the client doesn't see it, doesn't feel it. It can be very mysterious. A lot of times when I'm talking to people who are working with advisors, I say, like, do you know how much your advisor is charging? And 99% of the time, the answer is no. And I
Wow.
say, okay, well, do you know where you can find it? And again, they're unsure of where they can find the fee. So it's a super lucrative model and it's a sticky model. I think because there is so much mystery around it. And because once a client is on with an advisor, it's like there's really not much more incentive for the advisor to go above and beyond just managing the assets. And so the reason why it ends up neglecting business owners is because advisors don't really make money off of a client until they have that large lump sum, which is usually coming from a 401k rollover or selling a company. It's these liquidity events in the industry. They call it money in motion. So it's these money in motion events. And then that all advisors go after these money in motion events because that's how they get paid. And so what it ends up doing is neglecting all of these people until there is a money in motion event. And
Ah,
so I was like, this is a problem because you're blindsiding people with information once there is a money in motion event on the table. But if you took a proactive approach with these same people, they could be in a completely different position at age 50, 60, 70, whatever, you know?
wow.
Yeah. So that was one of the biggest things that I spent a lot of time on when I founded Theory is how do we eliminate this issue? And so for us, we charge a flat fee model. So we charge a monthly retainer. And I love that for three reasons. The first reason is it allows us to treat our clients like private wealth clients from day one. We treat every client like they have $100 million with us. And I just love that every single client is getting that service. Because again, if we go back to that AUM model, what ends up happening is there are tiers. And this is like kind of pulling the curtain back on the industry. But if
Right.
you go to like an industry event, and I remember Brooke, our client specialist, she came on to like an industry call that our chief investment strategist hosted, and she was like flabbergasted by this. But typically, a book of business for an advisor gets tiered. So you have like tier one, two, three, and four clients. a lot of times if you have like $500,000 with an advisor, you're going to be in tier four. So you're going to get the worst service. It's going to be very reactive. You're going to be the bottom tier for them because they are going out and looking for, the 2 million, 10 million, $30 million client. $500,000 is not a very attractive account to them.
Wow.
And can you imagine giving someone $500,000 and being treated like a tier four client? You're like, I
No, because
saved
I, like,
500,000.
yeah. And how many people, like you said, if they had been working on their business their whole lives and that was the amount they got for their money, and like, here's my liquidation event, and now you're being treated like that wasn't anything.
Exactly.
Wow.
It's a huge issue in the industry. And it's the thing I'm the most proud of. I would say in addition to being an advocate for female entrepreneurs and really opening up those quote unquote closed door conversations to women. Because again, like those golf course conversations, like the late night cocktails, it's like I have 3 children now, like women just have been pushed to the sidelines because they're typically raising children. And there are very few women in those quote unquote closed door conversations because it's just that's just kind of the natural evolution. At a certain point, it's like women start to drop off of these rooms. Like they can't go to the cocktail events or they're not on the golf course. And so, when I was in my 20s and I didn't have kids, I was part of those conversations, but I was also wondering, like, why aren't there any other women here? Now that I have
Right.
3 children, I understand why there weren't any women there. They're like, I have human beings to raise.
Yeah. So is
Um,
that why you went? Because I know you did work then with, like you were saying, mostly all men, and saw a
mhm.
very different model that they were creating their money and their wealth. And so can you talk a bit about that shift to women, and like, since they weren't having those conversations, why this is such key information that they just weren't getting?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me finish my other thought about the fee structure. So
Yes.
the other important things about the fee structure is it also keeps us completely objective. And that's really important because when you see commercials like the Fisher Investments commercials, for example, where they're like, we're on your side, like we grow and you grow. I mean, yes, it's technically true, but they're also biased to what you hold in stocks and bonds. So if you wanted to pursue a different wealth creation vehicle like real estate, that would be a net loss to them.
Oh,
And
wow.
so they don't have motivation to help you explore unique wealth creation opportunities. Like we have a client that just came to us and she was like, "Hey, I kind of want to look at investing in parking lots." And we're like, "Okay, we'll go research that and explore that for you." With a typical advisor, they would be like, "I don't know anything about that. I don't have any motivation to pursue researching it." It would end up affecting their income in a negative way. And
Right.
so that's also a really important aspect of our fee structure. And then the final one, which is really cool, is that our hope is that our fee grows linearly, your wealth grows exponentially. And so over time, our fee should get less and less expensive versus a traditional AUM model where it's like your wealth grows exponentially, their fee grows exponentially.
Yep.
So our whole goal is if we're doing our job right, we're actually going to end up becoming a fraction of the cost of a typical advisor over the
Yeah.
course of the relationship. And so like to actually see those things now, now that we're almost 5 years into theory and actually starting to see client results, it's really cool. We just had our first client cross over 5 million in net worth.
Yay.
Yeah, it's so exciting. And so I just wanted to wrap up that thought because I think it's just such an important shift, like a paradigm shift. And I feel like theory is very much on the leading edge of that. And I do think there are more planners in the industry that are starting to head in that direction. But I think we are definitely, like Abraham Hicks talks about like the physical world is the leading edge of thought. I feel like we are on that leading edge, which is really cool.
Yeah, well, I know in working with you, I also would say from a mind perspective, it's very different. Like I feel much more engaged in, if I know I'm paying a monthly fee and I get you guys to work with and we're being creative, I'm very much more involved in my money creation than if it was a fee. Like you said, 99% of people don't know where it's coming out, don't know what it is. So you're very much not like energetically connected to your money or the people that
Yes.
you're working with.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, this as a client, it's like you get the invoice every month. So it also keeps us I think in a great way on our toes to be consistently delivering value and to
Yeah.
because it is front of mind for you. So you're like, is this a great energetic exchange? Is this a good investment? Do I feel empowered by this? And there's nowhere for us to hide because it's like you are getting that every single month. And I feel good about that. You know, that is empowering to our team. It's motivating to our team. And so I'm glad that you feel that way. But so to go back to the female aspect of the conversation, I would also say that one massive thing that I noticed was the lack of emotional intelligence in the conversations. They were very transactional. And a lot of advisors, interestingly, actually avoided the planning aspect because it brought emotions into the conversation
Mm.
versus it being pure numbers, pure performance, pure, I mean, broad strokes here, but like testosterone, like what's my ROI, like what, just very transactional. And for Theory, one of the coolest things about working with women is it's money is just the tool, right? It's like the tool to live your life. And so to create a safe and nurturing space to have a conversation of like, what does happiness look like to you? What does safety look like to you? What does peace of mind feel like? These are the intangibles that need to be brought into the conversation and married to the strategy. You know, I love that for us, it's like we have and this is like a total reflection of me as a person, but it's like one foot in the practical and one foot in the woo. Like that's
Yeah.
where I like to be.
Me
Because
too,
it's
which I
like,
think is why we get along so well.
yes. And for
Because can you
entrepreneurs,
elap like, sorry to interrupt you,
no, not at all.
but I just love what you said there and I wanted to elaborate on it because as a woman, I felt very alone in, I'm a single mom as well. And so I felt very alone of, I know I feel like I need someone on my team to help me with finances and the questions you guys asked when we first met and the intake form about that, like what does make you feel safe? What gives you peace of mind? Were so clarifying for me. And I felt so like taken care of. Oh my gosh, I finally have someone to look at all of this with me from a perspective that really includes how it all shows up in real life because it's not
Yes.
just numbers, and it's not just that, and it is how we live our lives, and it was such a different approach. So I just wanted to throw that in there because it's really unique.
Thank you. It's what happens when you put women in the advisor seat, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
And really allow us to infuse the power of the feminine into the masculine because the masculine is important too and you know if those are charged words for you I would say like the practical and then the aspirational those two things need to be married because it's like we do live on a physical planet with needs like money is it's a very real thing and a very not real thing at the same time.
yeah.
So that's why I love the clients that we work with because I remember having this thought when I started Theory. I thought, if I can take an ambitious woman and support her with the strategy and the service and the support that I was used to giving $100 million client, I could change her life. And that is our mission. That is like this massive experiment that I have high conviction will work out well for our clients. But it's like, give me one ambitious woman, like, and women are just so dynamic, you know, and like we have to be, and there's science supporting that. It's like we can multitask and we just like often have to keep it together for our households. And that means that we have to get really clear on our time and our priorities. So it's like when we give those quote unquote marching orders to our clients, like they get it done because they have to, you know? So it's just, that's what I love about, okay, take all of this closed door information and give it to that ambitious woman, and she's going to take it and run with it. And that's what we've
Yeah.
been able to do.
I mean, I remember after one of our first meetings, and it was early on, so there was a long list of okay, and you guys to have that clarity of you giving to me, here's your next step. And I just went through and like checked them all off. And you were like, wow, that was fast. That usually takes a bit longer. And I was like, it was such a relief to have someone go, here's where we're starting, here's your to-dos, and like I know how to do that. Yeah, and it was so worth the value of because otherwise I just felt super lost and like I don't really know what to do next. And to give like you guys as a firm that's your specialty. And to have this mission and your energy behind it, like, I don't know how to do that. And that's so, so valuable to have people on your team that are really playing in their zone of genius and getting to
Hmm.
contribute to you, and my business and all the women you work with, all of their businesses. Like you said, it changes their lives.
Yeah, and I think one of the coolest things, well, first of all, thank you for that reflection because
Yeah.
that just, I mean, the whole team. It's like this is our life's work. And
Yeah.
so to hear that reflected, it means the world to us. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
The comment that I was going to add to that is it's like what I think people find success when they built what they would have wanted for themselves. And when I looked at how I operated, even like going to Orange Theory, I'm like, I want to show up and you give me the workout and I just shut my brain off and I just do it.
Yeah.
And that puts me in my zone of genius, like in the gym, because like I have a lot of willpower. Same thing with what we're doing. Like you're a highly successful business owner, our clients are highly successful business owners. The more we can position you in your zone of genius and take away the decision fatigue or take away the chronic worry, like that's going to make you more successful, right? Because all of your time and energy is going into your zone of genius. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and that's like another thing that's been so cool about how much we lean into collaboration with the rest of your team, right? So like getting the CPA on the phone, getting the bookkeeper on the phone, it's like 1990 on a Zoom call, getting like your whole team on the Zoom to talk these things out. And I think one of the most unique things that we've seen in working with people's extended teams is I don't think that they're used to that level of collaboration and the lack of ego. And those are also two important things that I want to be a legacy of anyone who touches or works with theory. Is like, wow, they were so willing to do the right thing for the client and they showed up with a lack of ego. Like, I want everyone to feel safe. I want everyone to feel like there are no dumb ideas. Like, let's win for Emily, you know?
Yeah.
And also and you have a role and a part in that too because it's like you're the one running the business, you are making the money, and that's why I put partners in the name, theory planning partners, because this is a partnership and we're going to do our part and the client needs to do their part, and ideally it's like a happy marriage.
And I love that as we start to look at then, okay, what are some mistakes or common like things that people don't know as female entrepreneurs? Because I don't know if this is common or this is just me, so let me know. But as an entrepreneur, I know we really like love our work. So
Hmm.
I kind of looked at it as, well, I don't ever really want to retire. I'll always be creating because that's such a
Hmm.
creative outlet for me. So I hadn't looked at it from a perspective of when you ask, well, when would it be nice not to have to work? Like, of course, you're still going to be creating and you're a business owner. Like, that's how entrepreneurs work. But because I had never been asked that question, I hadn't set myself up to even look at, well, it'd be really nice at like 60 if I didn't have to work anymore, but could for fun.
Hmm.
Then from there, building out, we built out a very different, like you were saying, well, what would you like a month? And what would that look like? Because now we can actually start planning. Is that a
Yes,
common thing that people aren't looking at as entrepreneurs, or is that just me?
it's literally my number one money
Okay.
mistake.
Okay, great.
Yes, and it's so natural. And that is actually why we call it the work optional number, because one of my favorite phrases that I like to use is wealth is just the luxury of choice. It's not a specific number. It's just the luxury of being able to choose. Do I want to work this year? Do I want to travel? Do I want to take on this client? Do I want to fire this client? One of our clients that we told she had reached the work optional or financial freedom. So she had reached financial freedom. So she was at work optional status. She fired all of the clients that she didn't like working with. And we were
Oh
like
my
so
gosh.
psyched for her. And that creates more room and more space for she is a different person and she will tell you that. She is so much happier. She is so much more relaxed. She just got back from Bali. She's working with like four clients that she loves. It's like that's what the money is for.
Yeah.
It's to enhance your life. It's not so you just sit there and watch it grow. It's like so that you feel the richness of life. And that is what I want for people most. And the hardest part is getting that nest egg built. That is the hardest part. That's the thing that the majority of Americans don't do. And it's totally natural. That's why I have it as the number one money mistake is people just aren't aware that this financial freedom number exists and it needs to be funded. And the earlier you're made aware of that, the less it takes. Does that make sense? So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because and it's so amazing the power and the difference of the words retirement or work
mm,
optional. Because I just always avoided it because I wasn't aiming for retirement. Like that's not me. I don't identify with that. So I just didn't look at it. And we got on a call and I was like, I can't believe I haven't been doing this for the last 10 years. It's kind of but you said, but hey, we're starting now, but
yes.
I hadn't looked at it just purely because of that.
Yes, I know. Because when you think retirement, you either think like lazy boy watching like soap operas or CNBC, or you think like laying on a beach. And I will tell you from my honeymoon, like I'm not a lay on the beach person.
Yeah.
Like I have to be stimulated, or maybe I'm a lay on the beach person for like a day or two.
Yeah.
But like we went to St. Lucia because I was like, I have to hike a volcano on my honeymoon. So the phrasing and the terminology makes a massive difference. And I think that women especially are just so intuitive, and when they grasp the importance of something, they become like the biggest ambassadors of it. And I think that's one of the coolest thing is theory has grown so quickly purely from word of mouth.
Yeah,
And that's just such a testament to like, okay, we're on the right track, you know?
absolutely. Okay, so that's number one is picking basically a work optional date and then
Hmm.
coming up with your financial freedom number, which is what you're aiming for like your net worth and what you have so that you can hit that phase.
Yes,
Good summary.
and
Okay.
I will add to that I would put this also in number one is the lifestyle creep. So if you don't know that number exists and needs to be funded, once you start making more money than you're accustomed to having, you get into lifestyle creep. So it's like, okay, you're used to making $10,000 a month, but now you're making 15 and you're just like the money will find a home, right? So it's like whether it's new clothes or a new car or what have you. So if you are moving from spending $10,000 a month to $15,000 a month, not knowing that your financial freedom needs $5,000 a month, time will go by and your lifestyle will grow and grow and grow, but that number will be neglected. And then that's when you have that wake up call, at 50 or 60 and or 70. And it's not to be fear mongering, it's just to know that this is out there and it needs to be taken care of too.
I mean, I love that word lifestyle creep. That's exactly what happened to me. And as my income started to grow, and I was like, well, that's normal that expenses are growing too. But had I known that number, I could easily have pulled more and started putting
Hmm.
it in that nest egg. But I just wasn't really thinking that way because of what we talked about. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's also not to say that you have to be like, living like a pauper. Once
Right.
that number is a finite number. So like let's say that it is $5,000 a month. So you stay living off of 10,000, you fund the 5,000. If you're making 20,000, okay, now you have that extra five. Like you can go back to putting that places that bring you enjoyment, like travel or something like that.
Yeah.
So, and that leads me to the next one. So, number two is that people don't automate. And we are human beings, so we have to automate. If that is automatically taken out of your bank account or taken out of your paycheck, you will get used to it. And that I've just seen that time and time and time again work successfully for people. That's why when I was working in Wealth Management Americas, when people would come in looking to retire, their two biggest assets over and over and over again, their 401k and their home. And that's because your 401k gets taken out of your paycheck before you even see it, and you
Yep.
have to pay your mortgage.
Yep.
So anything that you can automate, that will get done, that will get funded.
Yeah.
So
And
if
that's
you,
what most people then end up with their own, like their assets at retirement because they weren't. Yeah, that's a great one.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they didn't do, and it's the 401k is It's great. It's likely not going to be enough for our clients because they typically have lifestyles where, like, if you're just saving the $23,000 a year, that's it likely won't be a big enough nest egg to fund. If you're used to living off of $30,000 a month, that's probably not going to get you there.
Right.
So, and the thing is, that change happened in like the 80s, and there was some education on it, but not enough, in my opinion. So, and the other thing is just people naturally don't have a connection to like their 60-year-old selves if they're 30. They're like, why should I care about this now? And so it's our job to show the relationship between today and 60 and like the
Yeah.
direct relationship. Like here's how they're correlated and here's why doing something today matters. And most of our clients are visual. So if we can visually show that to them, that usually makes a huge impact.
Yeah. And let me note if this one falls under your number two in automating, is how do you work with entrepreneurs who often have waves of income depending on,
Mhm.
like, if they have launches and they have bigger months, how do you suggest they automate versus like more lump sums in? So there's definitely something always going in, but I
Yes.
imagine, because we've talked about this, like how you would
Yeah.
alter that.
Okay, so I would say that that's a huge part of our value as partners is the accountability piece. So we do like to see clients automate some amount monthly, but we know the nature of business is hills and valleys, right? So
Mhm.
our job as your partner is to be that person kind of like holding a mirror up or tugging at you like your higher self to be like, hey, don't forget about you, like you just had that great launch and we talked about this. Because when we have our annual progress meetings or year-end planning meetings, we're like, okay, we said this was the goal. How did we measure up? If you have someone like at least twice a year having that conversation with you and gamifying it, a lot of our clients are competitive, right? And they like to have fun. So the more that we can make it fun and make it like a game, it's uncanny, but it's like the better they get at it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
so I will say that there is a realistic component of you can only automate to a certain extent. For our more mature business owners, where it's like there is that recurring profitability, some of them can get away with automating, and that's perfectly fine. For other people, we have to take it on either a quarterly basis or a semi-annual basis to like reevaluate and optimize as we go. And that's perfectly fine because that's part of our, again, part of our value as your partner.
yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, are we ready
Okay.
for the next one?
I think so.
Okay.
Okay. So number three is like a little spicy. Actually, number four is spicier, but number three is they think that cash is safe. So we have a lot of people coming in that cash is like their safety blanket. And it's like my middle son, Luke, is obsessed with bunnies and like he's constantly holding his bunny. And I'm like, cash is like the entrepreneur's bunny, which it should be because cash is the lifeblood of a business, right? But
Yep.
then there gets to a point where you run into opportunity cost. So if you have too much cash sitting in a bank account, then you're running into opportunity costs because your money is not working as hard for you as it could be if it was somewhere else.
Yeah.
So usually the rule of thumb that we use with cash is 3 to 6 months of living expenses should be in your, I know you like to say trampoline fund. So we have joked that we need like a menu of options for this because people are like, I don't want to call it an emergency savings fund. Can we call it an abundance fund, a fun fund, a trampoline fund? So whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
The rule of thumb is 3 to 6 months of living expenses on the personal side. And then if you're a business owner, it's typically 3 months of cash runway in the business as well. Anything beyond that, that money needs to be working harder for you in a wealth creation vehicle. So, like, we've had a couple clients come in that have had, let's say, we have one client that came in and she had like $500,000 sitting in her business account. This is super common. She said, because I don't know what to do with it.
Yep.
So it's the paralysis by analysis. It's like the cash is just building up and then it becomes stressful because you're like, I don't know the best decision to make with this money.
Wow.
And that's where the power of the financial plan comes in because the plan immediately brings purpose and direction to that money.
Yeah. And also, so you've got now, if you have a larger amount, you've put aside your 3 to 6 months for personal and business. When you're even holding that cash, how do you recommend people keeping their that liquid amount. Because I know I had mine in just like a money market account that I was like, maybe I guess that's maybe the best I can do, which was doing nothing.
Hmm.
Really.
Yeah. So I'm glad that you asked this because I think this is another huge value add for us is left to your own devices. It just takes a lot of time and research and effort to like find the right account and keep up with what's paying well.
Yeah.
So, as you know, for our clients, we have that exclusive partnership with Flourish, which is a high yield savings account. So, Flourish is currently paying 4.5% on cash. It was paying 5%. What that high yield savings account pays out is correlated to the Fed, what the Fed dictates as interest rates.
Mm.
And so that is a moving target that's dynamic. And so again, it's our job to come to the table with like, okay, this is a great place to keep your cash right now. Or let's say that rates go way back down, then we might look at, okay, do we want to look at money markets or CDs, like something that's paying more? Or do we want to keep it in Flourish because we need it liquid? You
Yep.
know, it's again our job to come to you to say, like, hey, we think this is the best place to be keeping your cash right now. And this actually goes really well into number 4, if you want me to go there.
Yep. Yep. The spicy one.
Yeah, the
Another
spicy
spicy one.
one, which is the number 4 money mistake is that people often get sold. They think there's a silver bullet. There's no such thing as a silver bullet. And
Right.
that's because there are pros and cons to every single asset class, every single type of investment. There are also pros and cons to every single economic environment. So let me start with the economic environment so I can tie that back to the cash savings.
Yeah.
So, the economic environment that we're in right now, the Fed raised interest rates to help cool off the economy because inflation was getting out of hand. So, the con of that most people think of right away is mortgage rates end up going up as a result of that. But the pro of that is risk free, quote unquote, risk free or safe assets actually end up paying yields. So, cash, you're making 5% on cash, which is essentially a risk free asset. So it's like, yes, we did have to buy a house in the middle of this, of course. So we have a 7% interest rate on our house. We bought a condo in 2019 that has a 3% interest rate.
Wow.
So it's like, yes, that did hurt. It hurts to pay 7% interest on multiple six figures,
Yep.
but we're also getting 5% on our cash, on our emergency savings fund. So it's really just, there are pros and cons to every economic environment. And it's just about learning how to navigate through. I always say like money is a game and it's just like you have to learn the rules of the game and what pieces you have and like how to move around the board, like
Yeah.
Monopoly. So there are pros and cons to every economic environment. There are pros and cons to every asset class. A lot of times when you look on Instagram, it's like you're getting sold that real estate is the best and only way to build wealth, or whole life insurance is like the only foolproof way to build wealth. Like, no, I'm sorry, but that is just someone who's trying to sell you a product
Yep.
because there are just pros and cons to everything: stocks, bonds, cash, real estate, private markets, insurance. There are pros and cons to all of them, and it's our job as professionals to know what those pros and cons are and to educate you and to help you figure out which vehicles are going to be the best for your lifestyle. Does that make
And
sense?
yes, because and that personalization is so different. Like you said, so you're looking at all, so it has someone like you that knows all the options and then can look
Hmm.
at your lifestyle and really choose the gamut of what's going to work rather than, I mean, I've definitely had friends be like, I figured out the thing, or it's this one, it's this one stock, or it's this, and sometimes you get lucky. And other times I've seen people lose their entire savings going on in one thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, usually when I'm presenting, I say that the cornerstone of wealth management is diversification. And a phrase that gets used in our industry a lot is the only free lunch in investing is diversification.
Mm.
And that has multiple layers to it. Like, usually, when that phrase is used in our industry, they're talking about the importance of holding like index funds, for example, versus holding individual stocks. But to your point, the personalization, like we might have somebody who loves interior design and is married to a contractor. Okay, like why not go into short-term rentals or something like that?
Right.
For me, I mean, we do have a condo that we rent out. I'm so much more partial to the markets because I am a busy mom, and the markets are the only truly passive wealth creation vehicle.
Mm.
Like, it does still take time for me to deposit the check from our renter every month or like file the LLC, or we had to replace the boiler in the basement. It's like you got to meet with that person, and then that's like there goes the profit that we were going to make this year because that's like,
Yeah.
$5,000 or $13,000. So it's like just knowing what you're getting into, I think is really important. And I couldn't see myself like going into more than that one rental property, especially at this point in time, because it's like I have three children, you
Yeah.
know? So yeah, the customization, I think, and that goes back to our fee structure again. Like we're happy to explore that for you. It doesn't matter to us, but
Yeah.
it really needs to fit the person.
Yeah. I love that. Okay, are we at number 5?
Okay, number five. So this one, I think number four was the spiciest. Number five is more big picture and specifically for entrepreneurs, which is a lot of entrepreneurs are unaware of the type of business that they're running. And what I mean by that is there are two types of businesses. And this is like something that I have coined, but the two types are you're either running a lifestyle business or you're running an enterprise business. And the way that that factors into your wealth creation journey is if you're running a lifestyle business, like you are the business is you. If you stopped working, the business would stop. What that means if you're running a lifestyle business is that your savings is what's going to secure your financial freedom. If you're running an enterprise business, you will have an asset to sell. So, how does selling that asset factor into your wealth creation journey? If you're building a company that's going to be worth 5 million or 10 million, once you sell that, that will be part of your wealth creation experience. And so that might mean that you don't have to save as much as the person running the lifestyle business.
Right.
But it's important to start to get an understanding once you're 3 years in, 5 years in, like what direction do I want to take this? Because I do have to start thinking about how it factors into the big picture eventually. And if you are running an enterprise business and you can still save like you're running a lifestyle business, like that's the best of both worlds because what it does is it takes pressure off of the sale
Yeah.
of the enterprise business. And I will say, from being a part of deals, like buyers can smell when someone's desperate and they will discount the offer because of that. So
Yeah.
if you can be, and again, that goes back to the phrase like luxury of choice, right? I can take this deal. I don't have to take this deal. And so being in that position, right, it gives you all the options. So that's number five.
I just want to say thank you so much because it seemed to me I was kind of dumbfounded that I had gotten as far as I had in life and been around other people and entrepreneurs and somehow missed a lot of information or didn't ask the questions. And it's been so helpful to that's why I really wanted to have you on this podcast to just share some of this information that to you I know it probably seems basic at this point, but you're working with so many entrepreneurs and you're seeing these same things that people just don't know. I mean, even, the little thing of I'm a single mom, I have two daughters, and I hadn't had my girls on my payroll.
hmm
And
That's
and
like
I was
just a
like,
fun little, yeah, fun
yeah,
little wealth creation tool that
yeah,
could have massive implications for them,
for
you
them
know.
too. And it just, and so I just have been, I'm so glad I found you guys in the time when I was asking for, I know I require support here, but in a different way. And just everything, all of you on the team and the way you do it differently. And this simple advice, but it's a game changer. It really has changed like how I look at money, how the feeling I have around it. Like
Mm,
that sense of, when people are working with you individually and it's very personalized, it really, I know for me, has created a sense of support and safety that I didn't have on my own as an entrepreneur. And, I had a guy come in the other day. He was the plumber looking at things, and he said, "Oh, you're an entrepreneur, you're working from home." And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Oh, I'd never want to do that. That seems so stressful. I can't imagine having to worry about all that." And I thought, wow, I can't imagine. I knew for me I couldn't work in a normal 9 to 5 for someone else, but having this support financially takes that level of stress off of entrepreneurs. That is really there because you are creating your own business.
Yes. I
Yeah.
mean, that's why you have to have that like other foot in the woo because it's like you're creating something out of nothing.
Yeah.
And that can be a lot of pressure. But I will say you are like I don't think it's exaggeration to say 99% of people don't know these concepts or understand them.
Wow.
And I think, my human design, I'm a projector, so I'm here to guide and to see. I think one of the things that I saw is that entrepreneurs and wealth management were like two ships passing in the night,
Yeah.
and no one was bringing them together. And again, I think that came back to the fee structure, right? Because one of my earliest mentors said, "Tell me how someone gets paid, and I'll tell you how they act." And that stuck with me.
Wow.
Yeah. So interesting, right?
That is interesting. Tell me how
Hmm.
someone gets paid and I'll tell you how they act. Yeah, that's really interesting.
So I was like, this dynamic will not change unless we change the compensation model.
Yep.
So you are just like so normal. So and it doesn't get taught in schools. So it's like, when
Mhm.
are you supposed to learn? It's like by your own will and volition.
Yeah,
And that's for the majority of our clients, like not their passion. Jordan, our lead advisor, yeah, absolutely. Jordan loves this stuff. But the majority of our clients like aren't they're not going to sit down on a Friday night and like read a CFP book.
right. I mean,
So,
but I will say what had helped me is I knew it was important. So I had listened to a few podcasts
mhm.
or read a few books, but then I was still in that paralysis of, but I don't know now what to do with the information for me because I'm not
Yes,
totally sure how this applies, which is very like another great reason to work with someone else because I knew it was important enough to listen to little bits, but I could have gone down rabbit holes that didn't make sense for me and my life and my
exactly.
business. Yeah.
That's so true. I'm glad that you brought that up. And if there's one like feeling that I want our clients to have, it's that we are holding your hand through the process. And I'm so glad that you feel that way because it's like, oh my gosh, there's all this information. And we can just be like, okay, don't worry about it. We are holding your hand through this entire process. So, anyway, thank you for your reflections. I'm just like
Yeah.
so excited to share them with the team.
Thank you. And thank you for like taking that vision and bringing it to life. And you guys have been around 5 years now, right?
5 years in
Very.
March.
That's so exciting. So
Yeah.
that is like you said earlier, when we actually create something that in a way that we would have liked to be taken care of, there's a lot of success in that as a business model.
Yes.
So I'm really grateful that you were able to see that the mishap, like the ships sailing past each other and create something very different for it. So
Well, I also want to reflect back to you that you're an amazing client. So thank you for being with us and trusting us to help you on this journey. And we
yeah.
just adore you.
So if people listening want to find out more if like you would be a fit with them, where's the best way to get in contact with you and your team?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So the best way would be if you go to our website, it's theoryplanning.com. There's a link on there. You can book a call with me. You can also feel free to send me a DM on Instagram. We're at Theory Planning Partners, and either of those two places are great.
Awesome. And I'll put the links in the show notes for sure, but I just wanted to put that out there. And I really do like that you really see if people are a fit,
Yes,
again, another
absolutely.
personalized touch point.
It's a case by case basis. Don't be afraid to reach out. I'm happy to have a conversation and let you know whether it's now or if not now, when.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Caitlin. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. This was great.
Yeah, it was. Bye.
Bye.
I hope you got something out of that episode. If you like this podcast, please share it with someone you know who'd find it useful or interesting, and subscribe so that you can listen to past and upcoming shows.